Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started, and I'm going to leave it to Juliet to let people in from the waiting room. So thank you all for coming tonight. This workshop at 5 o'clock is Raising Kids on the Farm. And we have a number of presenters. I think Kate Spring was the person listed in the program book, but we're also joined by Caitlin Eberson, Patrick Sullivan, and Melissa Oliva, and Caitlin Burlett. So you'll be hearing a little bit from each of them tonight. I'll introduce Kate in a minute, but I want to just jump into a couple of NOFA business announcements. First, we want to thank our sponsors. Without them, this would not be possible. So I encourage you all to purchase from them, and when you do purchase from them, let them know how much you appreciate their support of NOFA. These are our silver sponsors. And of course, we want to thank you, all of our participants, viewers, listeners, for all of the support that you give us throughout the year through your memberships, donations, and participation in all of our programs. We just want to acknowledge that we are presenting, attending, and hosting this workshop from land that was managed and inhabited before European colonization. So please take a moment to find your location on this map and honor those whose lands you now occupy. So I'll drop this website here into the chat. This is a really interesting map that you can sort of click on to zoom in and explore the land in your area. We're all coming from all sorts of parts of this area, and you can learn more about your local area here. I'm gonna turn things over now to Kate. Kate is a farmer and writer at Good Heart Farmstead in Worcester, Vermont. She writes about organic farming, business, and creativity on her site, thegoodheartlife.com. So, Kate, take it away.
Hello, everyone. I am going to set up my screen share in just a moment, but first I just wanted to say thank you for coming, and it's really nice to connect with other farmers and parents as well. Edge and I say occasionally when we happen to see another farming friend in the middle of the summer that it always feels nice to connect, because we're all so busy, and especially in COVID times, it's hard to actually see anyone else, so it just feels really nice to be here. So I'm going to give just an overview of our farm and our family and how we have navigated growing crops and a child. And so I'm going to share my screen and share some photos with you. And all right, so I'm just going to start the slideshow and then talk as the slideshow is going. Okay, here we go. So we started Good Heart Farmstead in Worcester, Vermont in 2013, and I also gave birth on July 27th, 2013. So we have a brand new 7-year-old. He just turned 7 on Monday, and I'm sorry, it looks like these photos are a little grainy. So let me see if I can start that over one more time and maybe just do a regular. Whether or not the slideshow goes, I will still tell you the story. So I'm going to share some of the challenges of farming and parenting, as well as like the joys and unexpected benefits and just systems that we have used to make it all happen. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I'm going to start with some of the challenges around farming and parenting, and for me, that started with our first season. So when we were in the years leading up to starting Good Heart Farmstead, Edge and I, my husband Edge and I, were both totally in on the vision together, and I had this whole idea and vision of what farming would look like when we were finally running our own farm. And then we bought land and we started Good Heart Farmstead, and I was pregnant, and all of the sudden, well, you know, as the season went on, there was less and less I could physically do, and that was really hard for me because I had a very specific idea of of who I was as a person and what I could do, and not being able to broad fork, or my back hurting as my stomach got bigger and bigger. It was surprisingly difficult for me. And there was one day in early July where I was trying to trellis and prune tomatoes, and I just got to the end of the row and just started crying, and I had to sit down on the ground, and I was like, my back hurts so much. I want to be growing this farm. I want to be doing this with Edge. And Edge sat down next to me and was like, listen, you are growing something that I can't grow. Like, you're the only one who can grow this baby, and you're doing a really important job. And he reminded me of that. And so then I took my last 2 weeks and was able to relax before I had Waylon. And then along with that, I had this idea of like, I'll have him strapped on my back and like be right back out in the fields, and it's going to be really fast. And I was not back out in the fields in 2 weeks. Within a month, I was starting to slowly ease back in. And so this idea of the family farm in our first year, for me, felt very much like a total reorganizing of what it actually looked like. And then every year since then has been different as well, as Waylon has grown and become more active and not needed me physically as much as he did as a baby. But that challenge transitioning into motherhood and realizing that I needed to listen to my body in a different way and figure out how to navigate building the farm, not just in the field, but also doing the behind the scenes aspects. So doing the marketing and all the CSA communications and building a website, all of the business aspects. And I'm sorry for my phone ringing in the background, but all of the business aspects were things that I ended up really stepping into, and were things that I had not foreseen, but were really important as well. And so when I think about like the challenges of farming and parenting, a lot of it is the things that you don't really see on Instagram or on our website. It's all the behind the scenes stuff, and like balancing getting work done when Waylon needs a lot of attention, or just finding time for myself or for Edge to give ourselves the time that we need to like rest and recuperate as well. And just, generally just making sure that all living beings on the farm are getting the care they need and finding that balance. At the same time, some of the unexpected benefits of farming while raising a child is the necessity to have a work-life balance. So before we had kids, we both had times where we worked really long hours, and there wasn't a little being telling us it was time to stop and eat dinner, or that it was time to play. And so in other ways, having a child to raise on the farm has instilled this necessity of playing and stopping work at a certain time. And I think in the long run has forced us to ask questions of how we can be more efficient and how we can be more sustainable for our bodies and our like mental and emotional and spiritual needs as well. So Waylon, in a way, is like this encouragement for us to play and to be present and to slow down, even when we are feeling the need to just keep pushing and get all the work done that needs to be done. In terms of like some of the biggest joys that we've had of raising our son on the farm is just sharing our days together. One of the things we did early on was create a holistic goal, and Caitlin Burlett and I were actually in a whole farm planning course together. And that was going into our 2013, so our first year running the farm, and creating this holistic goal really helped me understand that we didn't want to farm all the time. We wanted to create a farm that allowed for our family to grow and meet our family's needs in many different ways. So that's something I would really recommend to anyone, is writing down, like, what are your goals? What do you want the farm to give to you? And how do you want the farm to support you, rather than just you pouring everything into the farm? So yeah, just sharing our days together, hearing Waylon like pick up worms and get excited about that. Hearing Waylon say things like, we live on a beautiful farm, or get excited to pick peas or cherry tomatoes, and just have different ways that he gets to be involved has just been really fun. It's also been a surprise, but I guess in hindsight, I can see this coming, but like Waylon has become this connector of sorts among our CSA members, and is like this natural marketer, which as a kid I would not have been, because I was super shy, but Waylon is just like, hi, welcome, here I am. And so there's just this sweet aspect of feeling this extended community around our family that we feed, but they also support us in really beautiful ways. And I had worked on CSA farms before, but there's just something special about the way our family and our customers interact and create this extended community. So some ways that we actually get work done. One is, again, like going back to balancing time and expectations. So from the beginning, we have just set expectations kind of low, and anytime that Edge and I are both working out in the field at the same time has become kind of like this bonus on days that Waylon's with us. And we do a lot of planning. So like quarterly planning, looking at how does each season change, and each season have different needs for Waylon or for the farm. So in the winter, we have a lot more family time. And in the summer, there's obviously I'm out in the fields. But yeah, we've just found that taking the time to write out what each season looks like ahead of time, and then proactively think about the support we need is really critical for us. And since COVID began, a lot of that has just been like starting over from scratch. Waylon had previously spent a day a week with my parents, which who have some immune issues, along with just being older. So he doesn't have full days with them. And then of course, like summer camps and school activities, things like that. It's been definitely a challenging season to get everyone's needs met. So I'm looking forward to hearing how others have navigated this too. But one new thing for us is having Waylon have his very own garden. So he's planting things that we don't grow for our CSA, and taking ownership, or like interacting with the land in a newer way. Yeah, so I'm gonna leave it there. I guess I do have some advice for other parents, but we can kind of come back around, because I think that will get covered. And in the comments, I also have a farming and parenting. Let's see, I'm gonna see if I can. I'll just pop a link in the comments, and you can, if you'd like to read some articles I've written on my website, The Good Heart Life, there's a bunch of articles there that you can just get some more insight and ways to navigate farming and parenting. And I write specifically a lot for moms, because I am a mom, but I think any parent can can find something there. So I'm gonna turn it over to Caitlin Elberson, and if you have any questions for me later on, we can circle back to that. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, thanks so much, Kate. Everything you said just resonates very strongly with me. So I'm Caitlin Elberson. My husband and I run Sober Mesa. We live a little bit outside of Burlington, Vermont. I have lots of notes, so I'm gonna look down a little bit. We have a diversified homestead, so our farm is not our primary source of income. We make fermented vegetables, and that is. So we spend a certain amount of our time fermenting and selling those, and then homesteading and selling some of what we raise. So we moved to new land in 2019. We have about 8 acres, and we have Icelandic sheep, laying hens, and meat birds.
And we have sheep.
Yeah, and we have sheep. And we have a garden, and we're establishing some perennials. So lots of interest here. This is our son, Aiden. He's 2.5. And I'm actually pregnant, so we're expecting our second child, which is very exciting, making this summer very interesting. This is my husband, Jason, if you want to say hi.
Hello.
And we've been married about 10 years, and we've been working together since about 2014, self-employed. So let's see. Okay. I have a nice little list of stuff Kate sent me as talking points, so I'll just go through them. The first one I wrote about was challenges. So I said the hardest thing feels like there's never enough hours in the day. It kind of feels like we wake up and know exactly what we need to start doing. And it feels like we pretty much go all day until we go to sleep, and I'm just still thinking about everything that we need to get done. So I guess that's just kind of the season of life. And just trying to figure out what that balance is. And, you know, children are so helpful because they do kind of encourage us to take those breaks. And have fun and eat and all that sort of practical, nice, fun stuff.
Forks.
And forks. We find that it's really helpful if we have some really concentrated work that we can get up really early and work and have food. Get up really early and kind of get blocks of work done either in the morning before our son is awake or at night after he goes to sleep, and then we can work together in a way. He's not currently napping, so it's kind of a long stretch during the day, but then we get really nice blocks of time at night. We don't have any childcare, so I would say that's been a challenge. I have a lot of friends whose parents live locally, and they might help out a few days a week. So for us, one of the things that works really well that we occasionally do is that we alternate who will wake up with our son. So whoever wakes up the first day is kind of the other person who's holding work for the day. Do you want to take him? Okay. Aiden's going to say goodbye for a little while. Can you say goodbye? Yeah, it was nice to see everyone, right?
Let's go play some more.
So we find it really helpful to kind of juggle that responsibility. And for me personally, it was very challenging after he was first born. As the mother who's doing a lot of bonding and breastfeeding and co-sleeping, it can be very difficult to navigate being away from your child for blocks of time to work. And I had always been very independent and focused and type A personality. So to slow down and be really present in that time and kind of honor what was necessary in our family was an interesting learning curve. Kind of like the first few years. He's 2.5, and really this summer is when I've even been able to do like more independent work. So planning is super helpful. We try to get together every Monday morning and talk about our goals for the week. And something that helps us be successful is knowing what we need to accomplish, but being flexible in terms of what day we might get it done. So we do actually map out Monday through Friday, but you know, if the weather shifts or something happens, we're able to kind of flip-flop what we need to do. Yeah, it's interesting. As I grew up in New York City, so there was definitely a learning curve when I jumped into this lifestyle. I would say around 2013 is when we moved to Vermont. And yeah, lots of learning curves. I mean, things like electric netting were not in my comfort zone, you know, knowing how to do things by myself. My husband was always kind of like the one who would figure that stuff out. So just as I was learning that, our son was born. So then I took kind of this time off, and now I'm finally starting to get back out there my self-induced stuff. So it's an interesting shift to feel like, okay, I've actually been doing something for a number of years, but there's still kind of these ebbs and flows in comfort and capability. And at what point is it a job for the three of us to go out there and it's slower, or can one person do it? So for me, it's kind of a big deal saying to my husband, hold on, even though that's going to be faster for you, it's important that I get it done. So that's been kind of fun to do recently. In terms of the joys, I would say it's just the biggest honor and pleasure and to be able to live this lifestyle. I think it's something we had kind of dreamed of. We both previously worked desk jobs, and we were like, we don't really want to raise a family this way. So we actually moved and kind of uprooted everything. So to be living in this now feels amazing, especially in these difficult times, to feel like we're doing some really concrete work that brings us joy, that we can see is feeding other people. It's just super meaningful. Just kind of a fun example of getting kids involved. So this is the first year my son really understands the vegetable garden. You know, last year we were moving and we didn't really do too much because we were focused on our livestock. So we were teaching him how to water, and it was kind of frustrating the first day. We were like, please stop splashing the plants, the leaves, like try to get it down at the root. And I was like, gosh, this is so much faster when he's not right under me, dragging the hose and like hitting all the plants. Like we don't have irrigation set up. It's a relatively small garden. But he listened, and I was really patient, and I didn't let him see I was frustrated, and I just explained why, which is something we really do in parenting, is always trying to like include our son and say why we're doing something. And literally 2 days later, we were in the garden, and I was kind of working on something independently, and I look over, and he was taking the hose, filling up gallon jugs of water, going up to each seedling and pouring it just very gently at the base of the plant and doing full beds by himself, and then refilling it. And it was like, how many minutes did it take me to explain that concept to him? And at age 2.5, that he could fully independently do that. So that was something I had kind of heard from people before, like exercise that patience, wait for your children to learn, and like you'll be rewarded. And that was just such an early, simple gift. So that was a nice example of them being able to be involved and learn and work while I was also working independently. Just check time, I feel like I'm just rambling. In terms of our systems, communication and planning, I kind of went over some of these things. When we work on a task, we pretty much have one parent dedicated to being the person that holds the completion of that task, depending on who's parenting at that time. And then the other person, if they're there, they're really there to watch our child and be kind of support, but not holding the task. So we try to be really clear about who's doing that. Are we efficiently getting it done? Every January, we try to have a retreat and reflect on what happened the previous year and kind of figure out like what worked, what didn't. We analyze all of our financials, and then we plan for the coming year. Like, oh, did that make us a little bit of money, but we really didn't like it? Is there something else we want to try? Does it really make sense to raise meat birds? That sort of thing. So that's super helpful. In terms of changes that we've kind of been dealing with from COVID, we previously had 2 little mini classes that we did off the farm per week, where we would just go and hang out with other parents for like an hour and a half, you know, parent-child classes, music, different stuff. And we haven't had anything like that. So it's definitely been hard to kind of create a new routine. That used to be a time for someone to really get a block of work done independently here with like no distractions. So just the fact that we're all based here has made it harder to really get everything done. It feels kind of like we're just running to keep up. Feeling a little scattered, as has this summer been, but I guess that's pretty much the general overview. I'm happy to answer questions when we get to it later. I guess that's good for now. Who is going to go next? Was it Patrick? Yeah. Okay. Should I mute myself?
Yeah.
You want to share the video first?
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, well, we have a little video that I think we can, I'm gonna figure it out how to
Okay.
how to share, and then
So just briefly to introduce ourselves,
Yeah.
we're Ananda Gardens is our business. I'm Patrick.
and I'm Elisa Oliva.
We grow about 1.5 acres of intensive vegetables. We do our primary marketing is CSA. We have about 150 member CSA. Things I think for everybody have changed a lot, and for us, things have changed a lot this past year with COVID. We live
Change meaning growing.
Yeah.
Yeah, expanding.
We've about doubled our production this year. We live just down the road from Kate and Edge. 10 or 15 minutes from them. And we have 2 kids. Our daughter Ananda is 6, and our second daughter
And she was
Munai-
born on July 28th. So we've been celebrating birthdays here.
And Munai was actually planned to be born in late October, because we thought, as she's our second daughter, she just turned 9 months, and we really consciously thought, like, okay, we have like a month in a couple Februarys ago
To make a baby, we need to plant a baby.
because how in the world are we going to bring a baby in just that where our business and our life is right now in the middle of the year would have been really challenging.
Yeah.
We started our business officially in 2016. We moved back to Vermont from Latin America. And we've just grown steadily, slowly ever since. I basically do all the growing with a team of, we have, we started off the first year, Melissa and I really worked in the fields together. The second year, we really decided to more like distribute our tasks. And I was the one from the beginning who just had the training in agriculture, the drive and interest.
And I was more like wolfing in my own farm.
And we'll talk a little more about that later. But then from the second year, it presented a big challenge. I think for both of us to have that dynamic as a husband and wife trying to grow a farm. And so the second year we really decided to distribute the tasks. And
so we create a job position for myself that would be more,
So Melissa does all of the marketing, all of the customer service for our CSA. She used to do deliveries. This is the first year that we have somebody else helping us with deliveries. So she, in a sense, did a lot of the behind the scenes and communicating work, and she still does.
But having that clarity of whose role, who would do what, allow us to
survive
and also respect each other's position, and honor each other's time too. Because when we try to do both the same thing at the same time, it was hard to dance. And that's probably what we want to express in this short conversation, like how to do this dance of parenting if you are blessed to have a partner to raise children in a farm.
Yeah, so we'll show our little video now, just give you all some context. This was the first photo. Melissa's from El Salvador, so this first photo.
So show an evolution of our family as we grow our farm, as we grow our family.
Okay. Stop music.
and we wanted to show you a little bit of like how does life look in the place where you work and where you live, because farming it's a lifestyle, it's not just a work. So many of those joys come from that, come from the fact that this is everyday life. So being here allow us to, as Caitlin, we don't have a childcare, we don't have our families nearby. So we've been able to see Ananda's first steps, Ananda's first words. Munai just started to clap last week, and we know exactly when that happened. We've been so present for that. So that's a joy that I would not change for nothing in the world.
Yeah, another thing that I think is really rewarding is how strong Ananda is, 6 now. Yeah, she's just so capable and physically strong, because this is her playground. Well, there's a picture of her little playhouse that she spends hours in, but you know, the farm is her playground too. She runs around, she checks in with everyone every day. She's just so physically capable and coordinated, and I mean that's just
her motor skills have developed playing with dirt and stones, and there's something, you know, important in that is her development and education is being also fostered by the land and by the resources of the land. And it's interesting, I don't know if because she's born in the same age of Waylon, but she's also developed this personality of being like a customer service person. An ambassador, that's what we heard. And so she'll love to come to the farmstead and offer people, like, I don't know, water with cucumber or whatever. This is before COVID. Like now we have to have other considerations and play with children that come to the farm, and be very generous to share her toys and her world with whoever comes to the farm. But I think that also have developed a lot of trust in herself and in a personality that have enabled her to be confident enough.
Yeah, I think it's awesome raising a family and growing a business. Just having our kids be around. Be around as we're
entrepreneurship skills developed. So now she's planning on her she's always thinking about how to improve the services, that we should offer ice creams, or that we should prepare foods, or you know, she's like kind of like in this mindset of what it means to be in the business. She's also, when we hire people, she's kind of part of the interviewing process, because we also want people in the farm staff that would be like role models for our kids, because if people come to work with us, they kind of be part of the family life. Mm-hmm. So that's also something that we take in consideration.
One other thing that I think is a real joy is you know, through spending a lot of time outside, through some alone time, quite a bit of alone time, our kids seem really resilient, independent. You said the word like keep them self-occupied, but it's more of like a creativity, like a means to play. I mean, I wouldn't doubt that she's felt bored before, but that's not really a term that's tossed around in our house. There's always something to do, and that's also been a real challenge. There's like my famous last saying is like, I'll be back in just a second. Because on the farm, you know, we might be in some family dynamic and like, oh my God, the water has been running for 2 hours. It only should have ran for
I'll come in a second, and it's an hour later. But I know now that.
And like you
So
go
plan
out,
on that.
yeah, you go out and you see, oh my God, it wasn't just turning off the water. There's actually a leak that needs to be addressed right now. There's, oh geez, I didn't collect the eggs. That kind of needs to happen too. So that also has put Ananda, especially, I think, in some situations where I just have a memory. One of like the challenging memories of her growing up on the farm is coming back from picking her up at school, and she would be in my pickup truck, in like the farm pickup truck, and I would have to water seedlings or something like that, and she would just be occupied try and put a couple toys in there so she could be happy. And just like having like challenging, like, gosh, I wish I could be with her sometimes in situations like that, but also this on the farm really needs to happen. So it's like, yeah, it's been a blessing and a curse, because I think it's really created a resiliency with her. But yeah, but it's one of those things that it's a balance.
Yeah, thinking about the challenges if we transition to that, or things that we are planning to improve in the near future. It's how to establish the boundaries between life and work. How to create more space for enjoyment, and trying not to do the whole or nothing planning, that it's like it's all the summer and then we'll have this chunk of time to enjoy, because it seems right now that it's not that realistic for us. If we need to have at least one day off, that we can do something as a family that doesn't have or involve nothing in the farm.
Yeah, so the work, I mean, we had down just the work-life balance. But it's really nice that we live where we work, but there's also an inherent challenge that comes with that. When we were talking about kind of what we wanted to speak about, Melissa mentioned just that, we may go out on a family walk. This spring, we were really trying to go on a walk every afternoon, every evening, just as something nice as a family to do. And like I might stop and like start addressing something or pulling some weeds out on the way. So that, there's like a really fine line. There almost isn't a work-life balance. We're kind of always working. The kids go to bed and it's like bookkeeping or, so it's really intense, I think, for the parents sometimes.
So for example,
it can be really
the next improvement that we're considering is like how to include in the equation partner time, like intimacy between us, time to talk about having an adult conversation that doesn't need to be like go out on a date
or
on a
be
restaurant
around the
or
farm.
something, or be around the farm, but something just like us, like how to keep the fresh memory of who we are as a couple, and have this connection that actually fosters everything else.
I think one thing that has been really, made this year possible, because we did kind of make a pretty big jump this year, is been having a really good team. Because that really allows me to get things set up and then step away and be a parent. Like I don't have to be there all the time. So I think that there's a really nice thing to not being so small that it's just us, the two of us, that now we can have a couple, up until this week, we've had at least one person here every day, and a couple days a week had a team more like of 3 or 4 people. And then on those days, I can really, take 2 or 3 hours to be with the girls. And Melissa is, because she has other interests and is pursuing another career. So that I can, as having other people around has made it possible for me to step up into a role that I can really, help her too. Because she's helped so much set up this farm, does so much kind of behind the scenes work, and we don't always get paid for that. One of the realities of starting a farm is that like the team like gets their paycheck every couple weeks, and we're not on our payroll. and we've been able to make it work, but there's also, a lot of work that's gone unpaid. So for me now, like being able to contribute to her in this way is really positive. And if we didn't have a team, that wouldn't be possible.
Mhm. And in that sense, dance the dance. It's also be reliable to each other, commit and follow those commitments between the two of us. It has been very important. So if we say that we have to be at 10, we have to be at 10, and that has become something that right now that Ananda's like having her own commitments, like, I don't know, going on time to her soccer play, or go to her ballet show, or whatever she's interested in. We need to schedule that too. And yes, there's always going to be a greenhouse to water and seedlings to plant, but we also need to honor each other's priorities and needs. So
yeah, I think that's something that Melissa's had really clear from the time that we had kids, is letting them develop their own passions too. That they don't have to be, they don't have to grow up to be farmers, and that's fine. To really foster whatever they're interested in. And that also takes time, dedication, and often resources. So we've just been tried to be diligent to really, make sure that happens. And anything else that?
no.
Distributing roles has been awesome for us. And really, making sure, I guess, because going back to that first year when we were both doing some of the growing and gardening, that was really tough for me because I brought a lot of experience in and knew exactly the way I wanted to do it. And then Melissa would also have suggestions and want to experiment. And I wouldn't be so open to that, but then that became really difficult. So now, in a sense, like, she has her area and I give feedback, do as much proofreading as I can.
Because English is not my first language, so I need that.
But, kind of give her total, she's got control of her area and I have control of my area. And we've grown to a point now where we can just trust each other so much that if I know we need to invest in something, like, she's not second guessing me. She knows that, it needs to happen. If she thinks that we should try and do blueberries into the CSA or whatever it is, then I just let her go for it. And try it, like, that we're both able to really express ourselves fully.
And that also goes for parenting. That we need to respect each other's views and get and be in the same page, to provide them with resources, with time, with commitment, so we can so they can express themselves fully in the scenario of the farm.
Yeah, I think that's all we have to share for now.
Thank you, guys. And Caitlin, you're up now.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Burlett from Wild Carrot Farm. We're down in Brattleboro on Abenaki land. We primarily focus on vegetables, diversified vegetables, with a CSA and a farm stand as our primary outlets. We also raise some poultry. And we do most of our work with draft horses, which is a big part of our farm. So we're making hay with the horses, and they're doing all of our field work. And we also share our land with another family, Jan and Bailey, Fairlands Farm. So we've share a lot of the responsibilities of the land. We have separate businesses, but we share land and some of our animals together, which has been a great way to have more people around for our family and for our kids. So I also have some notes because my brain is super faggy. So we have 2 kids. We have a 6-year-old named Selah, who just turned 6 a few days ago, and a 2.5-year-old named Aeneas. And they are right now with their grandparents, which is amazing, because otherwise they would be in here, because during COVID times they are with us all of the time, unless they happen to be at their grandparents, which is very lucky. So I also have some photos that I might just put up while I'm talking, if I can find it. Hopefully I can make it work. Without the music, let's see. Did it work without the music? All right. Oops, is it still going? All right. Can you still hear me? Okay, great. So we started our farm in 2011, and we were on different land, and we moved here to the land we're on now in 2013, and our daughter was born in July of 2014. So, and our business has changed a lot over that time. We started off with a 30-person CSA, having another partner that was farming with us and working off farm jobs. And at this point, we're growing about 3 to 3.5 to 4 acres of vegetables, and caretaking 45 acres of land, a lot of that hayfield and pasture, and our 2 kids. And we've gone from having no employees to this year having more help than we've ever had in the past. A lot of that, our business has changed a lot this year because of the COVID pandemic. Part of that is having more help because our kids are home full time, and also our business has just changed a lot. We added on a lot more CSA members in our farm stand, which has been traditionally pretty small, just selling our own products, and a handful of other producers, has gone to having probably over 100 different producers, kind of a full serve farm stand, and doing online ordering and porch pickups. And it's just been a whole lot of changes this year. So, and trying to navigate that with 2 kids has been a lot. I think some of the biggest challenges for us has been, well, particularly for me, I had 2 very difficult pregnancies, which really affected my role on the farm, and what I was able to do physically and emotionally and mentally changed a lot over time. So originally, I guess we actually started the farm in 2010 when I was doing it solo, and my husband Jesse came on board in 2011 and another partner. So we grew a lot in that 1 year, but I was kind of originally the farmer in the family, and the original plan was that I would be farming and Jesse would be working off the farm and helping support that. And that has changed a lot with kids, just our ability to, I guess our roles have changed a lot. And I've struggled with that a lot, especially in terms of our gender roles. And I've become a lot more of the caretaker and the homemaker, and I do a lot more behind the scenes work than I think I initially thought that I would. And as our business has changed a lot, we're trying to do some big business planning this year, and but it's all pretty unpredictable, and trying to find that time with the brain capacity to do that is always hard, but especially this year and this summer. So yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges is time, and finding those boundaries between kids and work. And we've never been great at designating roles, because we both really love to do all the things on the farm. And I think I'm always pushing back a little bit of like, no, I really want to be out there and doing some more of the field work, when I really have endless amounts of things to do on the back end, and I guess the front end and the back end. I kind of manage the farm stand and the wash station and CSA. And having kids kind of steals all of your brain power. So yeah, I guess some of the biggest joys, I gotta look at my notes, has been just watching our kids grow up so connected to the farm and to the food, and just learning so much. And so many, farmer is kind of a jack of all trades in a lot of ways. My kids are learning how to use power tools when they're 3 and 4, and learning how to plant, and learning how to harvest, and are also just strong and resilient. And the Instagram photos lie. Like, there's a photo of me seating with my daughter on my chest, and that happens sometimes, but my energy level is not what I expected it to be. I think, I had that vision of, I'll just, wear the baby and I'll be able to work all day or part of the day, and nap time will be great. But neither of my children have been sleepers. So napping is not always happening after age 2, and sleep at night is few and far between. So that has been hard, but they also just let us stop and make us slow down, and they tell us when we're not paying enough attention to them, and not and just when our focus is so torn between being a parent and being a farmer, and always kind of on the go. And taking that time, we never took weekends before we had kids, but in the past couple of years, we've really started trying to take time off on the weekends so that we can be with our family. And at least, there's always fires that need to be put out. There's always plants that need to be watered, and horses need to be brought out to pasture. But really trying to designate time that is for our family, which is really hard to find those boundaries when you live where you work. But we found that is one of the biggest things that we can do for keeping all of our sanity. And also kind of designating who is parenting and who is farming in each moment, or we try to plan ahead, but that is not our forte. With day to day, how the day plays out with our kids. Both our oldest daughter has always been very much a mama's child, so that has kind of she has led the way in a lot of ways. She's amazing and stubborn, and knows what she needs, and is really good at getting her needs met, which means that one of us often is not farming and is parenting. But trying to do both of those at the same time can happen, but it takes a lot of energy, and I guess it depends on how much energy we have that day. Some days we have them out there with us for a long time doing work, and other days we barely can get them out the door if they are not motivated. And I've realized that, they think it's fun if we think it's fun, and we don't always think it's fun, but we can at least pretend that it's fun. And most of the time it is fun, and they make it fun. And we have more crew now than we used to have, and we've realized that having people working with us that love kids, or at least are really flexible with kids' schedules, is really important, because they make it fun for the kids too. And it's especially during these times when our kids aren't really seeing other people, they make it they can make it fun and more exciting. And luckily this year, my daughter's preschool teacher is also a farmer, and so he's working for us, and so we have this great combination of a teacher and a farmer. So yeah, and I guess thinking about some of our struggles during COVID and things that have changed is that our kids have always been a big part of our CSA pickup and our farm stand, and we live in a very public place. We live just a couple miles from downtown, and we share land with a lot of other people. And we, during CSA pickups, and a lot of the time they've kind of just had free reign of the land, and we have playgrounds and pick your own gardens, and we have a lot of families that are in our CSA. And that has been like the highlight of their week every year. And this year, the kids have most families aren't bringing their kids to CSA pickup if they can, when they're not sticking around, and our kids really want to play with them. And it's been hard to just navigate those changes and how our space feels as parents. And one of the coolest things I think has been watching my 6-year-olds be so proud of the farm and of her knowledge about the farm. Like when people ask her questions, and she can tell them all about how to grow carrots, or when to harvest popcorn. She just lights up, and it's just so exciting. And she's so proud of everything that she knows, and loves showing people around the farm. And her kindergarten class this year, their last unit of the year was a farm unit. So they were doing remote learning, which doesn't work that well for kindergartners, but her teacher came over and they made videos together outside about the farm, and they put together planting like packets of seeds and packets of things to do, like seedlings to plant, and made a little video about how to plant things. And they got sent home to all of the other kids in her kindergarten. And it was so wonderful to watch her, telling her teacher all about how to do all these things on the farm. So, and it's, made both of my kids so much more resilient, I think, and able to weather so many things. Yeah, I feel like most of you covered a lot of the things that I would have said. I guess one other thing is thinking about safety on the farm with kids has been a little bit of a source of anxiety for us. Just having large draft horses that we do a lot of our work with limits some of the things that our kids can do with us, and just all the other other things that can happen on a farm, and trying to balance their safety and fun and their ability to take risks and learn on their own, and jumping out of haylofts. And that's my daughter taking her first steps, and her first she just talked about horses for her the whole first year of her life, just walking right to the horses. So yeah, I think that's about all I got. So.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So Kate, I don't know how you want to do this. It seems like there are few enough people that we could take questions verbally if people want to chime in, or people could put questions in the chat, whatever they feel comfortable with or whatever you feel comfortable with. Also, if you want to hear from any participants, it seems like it might be interesting to hear how other people are handling things. So however you want to handle this is good with me.
Yeah, I think if anyone has questions, however you feel most comfortable asking that. So if you want to just like unmute yourself and ask, that's great. And if you would rather type something into the chat box, that works too. I would love to just sort of follow up on some of the things that others said, because I had so many more notes that I was like, oh no, I'm going over my time. But one of the things that Patrick and Melissa had mentioned was really wanting to make sure that their kids are able to pursue what's interesting and exciting to them. And that's something we think a lot about with Waylon as well. Neither Edge nor I grew up on a farm, but we have people all the time saying, oh, do you want Waylon to be a farmer? Are you gonna like give the farm to him? And just like, we don't know, but you know, he's 7 years old. But something that's always been really important in how we engage with Waylon is we always want him, well, basically we move in a way that like for Waylon, that farming's an option, but it's not a chore. And there are things that there are chores he does now, but we just try to frame it in a way that it is fun. Like Caitlin said too, like sometimes it's not fun, but you just make it seem fun. But yeah, just that sense of our goal as parents is that when he looks back on his childhood, that he enjoyed it. You know, that I ran into someone who was just going into college and were friends with her parents, and she was raised on a farm. She was like, I'm so glad they stopped farming. That was terrible. And I was like, oh no. Like I can understand the different stresses. So it's just, as Waylon gets older, like really trying to make space for the things that he loves is really helpful. I think for all of us, because as everyone else mentioned, like kids will let you know when they're not getting what they need or want. And I've found that taking that time to slow down at that moment or before, especially before the meltdown, ends up saving so much more time later. So like having patience in the moment when you're like, I just really want to get this work done, but having patience earlier on saves so much time. Like I loved what Caitlin, you said about Aiden watering the plants, like taking that time pays off down the road. Not all the time, but a lot of the times. Yeah, I would love to hear from others. And so if anyone has a question that is, any viewers have a question, just hop in or type it. I would love to hear from the other panelists, like from where you are now, looking back from the point where you had kids or when you were pregnant to now, like, is there anything that you can look back and say, like, I wish I had done this differently, or I wish I had prepared in a different way, or moving forward, like, is there anything that stands out of like you would change and you would tell someone else, like, oh, this was really hard, don't do that, do something else? So if anything pops up, unmute yourself and you can answer that.
I think one thing for me has been trying to make those boundaries of I am parenting right now, or I am farming right now, and between my partner and I, really making that very clear and not both being like really just constantly, I feel like we for a long time just kept knocking our heads against the wall and being like trying to both do all of it at the same time. And sometimes and not having that plan in place was, I think, especially early on, would have been a lot more helpful, so that we wouldn't stop losing our minds over like, oh, I can't get anything done ever. At least one person could be getting it done. And then when you have that stress, or if you're not the one that's in charge of making something happen, then I feel like you can enjoy your children so much more. And it's like, this is what I'm doing, and I'm just gonna have fun with them and focus on them and get them what they need. And when I'm able to do that and let go of, oh my gosh, this needs to happen, the plants are gonna die, and somebody else is responsible for that, I just enjoy them so much more, and they are so much happier when I'm able to give them my full attention.
All the
I'm
Go
just
ahead.
if anyone doesn't have any children yet, do as much as you can now. Set up all your systems, unpack all your stuff, get everything super organized, and then breathe. Like,
I have
Do other folks have responses? Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm so excited that you all did this presentation. I work on a farm right now and want to continue doing that, but don't have kids yet. And it's, you know, within the next 5 years, I'm expecting I probably will. So I'm so glad you did this presentation on this topic. And I was kind of wondering from each of you, you talked a little bit about it, but how you engaged your kids when they were on the farm with you at the various ages. So I saw, I think Caitlin Burlett, you showed a picture of the baby in a swing of some sort. And so, yeah, I'm just kind of curious, when the kids were with you on the farm, like, how do you keep them engaged, or how do you keep them occupied?
We have swings all over the farm. Greenhouses are a great place to put swings and hammocks. We had a little baby hammock at one point, and we had a trapeze for a while, kind of just changing things out constantly. We have 2 playgrounds, one of them which is very old and totally unsafe, but the kids love it. But yeah, we've engaged them from day one. I mean, we live on the farm, and when our oldest was born, we had one person working for us, you know, about 15 hours a week, and the rest was just totally us. And so I remember the first time that my oldest daughter, who was about 2 days old, my husband took her out and was weeding the tomatoes and stuck her underneath the tomato plants in the shade. And I was so anxious, and it's like, she's gonna get sunburned. But yeah, they've never really not been engaged. I feel like this year they've been less engaged than ever, which is funny because they're older now, but I think because they're older, my oldest is more resistant to being out on the farm. My youngest would love to just like go out and help do whatever. But I think for us, the trick has been having like mixing play in with whatever we're doing, wherever we are, having swings in the greenhouses, having like strollers and wagons and toys and kid-sized tools, and also just, you know, we didn't used to have a farm truck, but now we have a farm truck that's kind of the home base that they can, if they're cranky and need to be in the shade, they can like sit in there and listen to an audiobook or get out of the field if they're feeling really cranky, and have lots of snacks on hand all the time. So.
Yeah, I echo the snacks and the kid-sized tools, and huge compost piles, finished compost piles to play in. For Waylon, he also has been like out on the farm since he was born, and every year has been different, you know, as he grows and goes through different stages. There's different amounts of time that he can be independent. I've heard that however old your child is, multiply that by 10, and that's how many minutes you can kind of expect to have them be independent. So he's 7, so he should be independent for 70 minutes, which is relatively true, like the amount of time that we've been able to focus while he's either playing, or a lot of times he's been playing nearby so we can see him. I can't even count how many hours he has just tunneled and dug around like our big compost pile. Again, finished compost pile, so it's, you know, he doesn't get too gross. But just having like different areas around the farm that are open for playing. And then this year he has his own garden, so he's growing sweet corn and watermelons, and which are two things that we don't grow for the CSA, and some other things that are like just his own garden, and we do a lot of work for that as well. You know, he doesn't weed that by himself, but it's become a nice kind of like family, more low-key area on the farm. And last year we actually started paying him, so we pay him for his help with the potato crop, and it's been a really great way again to like teach him about business and about what it means to run a farm. And I know others had, I think Patrick and Melissa had mentioned, like, you know, your kids just see what running a business is like, and there's these things that I've already noticed are second nature to him that I didn't start learning until my mid-20s. And when I say that to him, he's like, what? How could you not have known this? But I think with each age, there are different ways you can engage them. And then again, just like making sure that when trying to catch, there's always a moment for Waylon where I can tell, like, if I keep saying one more second, it's just gonna go downhill really fast. So that balance between tending to the crops or the animals and tending to your child, and like really trying to find like where that line is, which is always shifting, is important. But yeah, snacks, kid-sized tools, toys in different areas. And then I've also found being really specific helps. So if I'm like, I have so much to do, that doesn't really compute for him. But if I say I have like 3 things that I need to do, and it's going to take me this long, then he's typically a lot more amenable to that. So yeah, just like specificity and like clarity, and those 2 things alongside a lot of flexibility. It's really helpful.
Thank you. Do folks have more questions?
I can comment to the last question too.
Sure.
I would say that free play around the farm has been huge. Likewise, just playing any kind of wood chip pile or compost pile. Having a playhouse outside of our own house, very close to our garden. When Ananda was younger, we had a sandbox, like a big sandbox right in front of our garden, because the reality of it is that, yeah, like we don't want to force her to work in the garden. We can get her interested, and there are certain jobs that she loves to help with. Like if I'm pushing our little cedar, she'll run out and grab a handle of it and push it. Or if I'm pushing an empty wheelbarrow, she will, as one of her favorite things in the world, to jump in the empty wheelbarrow. But if we're not gonna like make her weed a 100-foot bed with us, maybe she'll plant for, you've planted for an hour or longer before, but also it's nothing that's forced. So we really encourage,
Once I didn't. I just did 1 minute just because I found a rotten egg.
Well, this year she's been scarred because in our home farm compost, she reached into a planting bed where we were planting lettuce and got a rotten egg.
And my hands smell terrible.
So we really encourage play. There's a certain capacity that she'll be around and engaged. And then after that, she's kind of free. So there's a part of that too that has really made us think, try and make the whole farm really safe for a kid. There's one area in our tractor shed that, you know, has oil and diesel, and she's really not allowed, she doesn't go in there. But everywhere else on the farm is pretty safe for her. Yeah, anything else you have to say, Melissa?
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question, or a comment that I want to folks to jump in if they'd like to. Yeah, so I grew up on a really small farm, and I'm the oldest of three. And of course, I can't really remember what I was doing when I was all your kids' ages, but by the time I was 10 and my brother was 7, we were milking the goats every night, which was a major project. And we did a lot of work first, you know, picking vegetables and hauling manure and things like that. And I'm curious at what point, I should go back and ask my parents this, I'm curious at what point that sort of shifted in our family from being like from being like fun and like optional to being an obligation, because there's definitely a point at which that shift happened and it was no longer just for fun or optional and it was an obligation. And then there was another point where we actually started getting paid. So I don't know exactly when that happened, probably when we were teachers, but I'm guessing there was a period of time from age 7, 8, 9 to 13 where there were certain expectations that these things had to be done, but we also weren't being compensated. And so it's interesting to see how different families kind of evolve with these things and see how that balance shifts. And I think my parents were also really good. It was interesting, a lot of you said you encourage your kids to, like, you know, have other interests and not necessarily expecting them to be totally focused on the farm all the time. And I think my parents were really good at balance. You know, we did sports or art classes or music lessons or things like that. So it's not like we were, you know, in the fields all the time. But, you know, I even remember getting home from school in like 1st, 2nd grade and getting into, you know, making tomato sauce or things like that in the fall. So I feel like there's a large spectrum of like the balance that you can hit with that. And I don't know that there's like any wide range. And out of the 3 of us, my sister is the only one who's professionally farming at this point. I've done farming, you know, on other people's farms over the years. I've done my own gardening, but I'm not farming for a living. My sister married a farmer who grew up on a, you know, big CSA and in Wisconsin, and they have a farm and a 1.5-year-old. So it didn't turn them away from farming. That's the good news. So they're going strong with their operation there. It's really interesting to hear how all of you are handling this sort of from the parent point of view, because I have spent a lot of time thinking about this from the kid point of view. Thank you. Do other folks in the audience have questions or comments?
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking, like, I'm sure different people in different situations is different, right? We have a 6-year-old, so we haven't like gotten to the point where, you know, shorts are like an obligation or that the only thing that she has to do, like, it's like feeding the dog, which, you know, it's family, it's not like farming itself. But sometimes when Ananda goes to she's very engaged with the farm crew sometimes, because they are young people, and some of them actually are educators at Earthwalk, and they're like super
Good with kids.
Yeah. And that's something that we are like looking to our staff, because we know that she's gonna get this exchange. COVID have changed things we haven't allowed her to like be so close lately. But in the time before, just kind of like joking, but seriously, I'll tell her like, if you go work for, I don't know, half an hour, you get paid. And of course, she's very food driven, so she'll save for ice cream. And she'll do that type of things. But mostly it's every time we're doing like a big task, we work a lot this idea that we are a team, that our family it's a team structure. So each of us has a responsibility, and sometimes her responsibility is to keep herself safe. So that means entertain herself, because we're gonna be very busy.
Or hang out with her little sister.
Or hang out.
And to get some like fruit for the popsicles.
Fruit for popsicles.
Picking berries.
Picking berries. It's a very
responsibilities.
important responsibility.
But I think that, you know, what's been brought up is really it's the balance, and it's kind of the golden question of how do we engage our kids enough that they're really taking full advantage of growing up on the farm, learning everything. You know, I really want, whether my kids grow up and are farmers or not, I really want them to know how to do everything on this farm. I really want them to be able to grow their own food, run a business, serve their community. But the last thing I want to do is drive them away from the farm, because we've obligated that they need to be out for hours picking beans. You know, which I have heard, I worked with somebody years ago who that was the case when he was growing up. And, you know, just has like an aversion to being on the farm or in the garden. So I think that there's that equilibrium is really what we're searching for.
And I grew up, my mother was an entrepreneurship and had a family. We had a family business, and I remember when I was 10, I would have to work, and I was very underpaid. I didn't feel like it was fair that I was working so hard for like probably no compensation. I didn't feel that good about it. And that part was not good for my entrepreneurship spirit. But what was good was to see my mom, because as an entrepreneurship, you even have like small celebrations. Like as a farmer, you have a small celebration. Yeah, that crop like made it. Like we nailed it with the.
You have to have small internal celebrations, because it's the only way you're gonna stick through it.
So to witness that for me was pretty important, because that gave me the drive of the work that I do right now. And even if I didn't learn, you know, how to do marketing with my family, or I didn't know how to, I don't know, do like some like of the tasks that I need to do. What I learned is the spirit, is the drive, and that dynamic of understanding the family business as my, you know, our endeavor.
Yeah, I feel like we could have a whole nother workshop that's not even just about farming, but just about sort of understanding the business and the, you know, build the practical skills that kids get exposed to. That's not even specifically growing a vegetable or raising an animal, but all those other things. It's just so complex. And like some of you were saying, your kids are just like immersed in that and don't even think about it. It just comes naturally. I have a couple of quick announcements, but I want to see if any of the presenters want to chime in with any final thoughts.
I just wanted to say that I am really grateful to do this, because I feel like my family right now is really struggling with a lot of our dynamics, especially during this pandemic, and how just our business changes and everything, and going through and like looking at all these pictures of my kids on the farm and seeing the life that they are able to live, even if they don't grow. I don't expect them to grow up to be farmers. Even if they hate farming, they're at least like they're in this natural world all the time and learning so much, and thinking about it from that bigger picture. It feels like this is the way that I want to be raising my kids. And it just felt really good to be able to kind of go back and look through all of these things and really come back to, we're still doing what we want to be doing with our kids, even though it's really hard and we're all really tired. So thank you for making this happen.
Yeah, I will echo that. I mean, we've had our dynamics. It still surprises me sometimes where I'm like, oh, this was a COVID day. Like, I just call them COVID days, where I'm like, we just had 3 great days and all of a sudden everything's going wrong again. And yeah, navigating the emotional aspects that, especially with young kids, where I've just noticed I've had to step back and be like, oh, I think this is coming out because of all the uncertainty and all the changes and all the questions. And like, yeah, there's just things that have popped up that I'm like, never had to navigate this before, but so it's really helpful just to like connect here. And one thing I would like, just one closing thought in terms of parenting and farming, is to really be gentle with yourself. I think as farmers and parents, like there's just so many pressures on a lot coming from many different angles. And it's really important to kind of find something that grounds you every day. Like I really loved hearing about like your family walks. We don't do something like that every single day, but we do pretty much eat dinner together every day. But the other thing is that Edge and I have done even since before Waylon was born, but something that he knows is that we always have quiet time in the morning. So there's a period of time in the morning where we wake up before Waylon, and then pretty much until like our tea and our coffee is done, it's just quiet. So if Waylon wakes up before our tea and coffee is done, before we're like done with our morning routines, he just is quiet as well. You don't come over and like give me a hug or something, but it's been something that if we miss a day or it just gets thrown off, we really feel it. And so whatever it is for you, trying to find one daily or weekly, but like I think really just like having a small daily ritual can be really helpful in staying grounded and remembering like to find the beautiful parts of it in the midst of all the really hard parts. So yeah, routines that support your mental and emotional and spiritual health are really, really helpful. Yeah.
Thank you. So if folks want to connect with any of the presenters, toward the beginning of the workshop, we posted their farm websites in the chat. So I imagine there's contact info there. So thank you all for coming. Thank you all for presenting and sharing all that you shared. Have a good night.